I'm about to tell you something that will sound impossible, but I swear on everything I hold dear that it's true. 3 years ago, I was a 34-year-old guy living in Chicago, convinced I was destined to be alone forever. I had given up on love completely. And then, I met the woman of my dreams. Not through a dating app, not at a bar, not through friends. I manifested her. Literally. I created her in my mind first, and then she appeared in my life in the most incredible way possible. But here's the thing. This isn't just a love story. This is about how I discovered that we truly create our own reality, and how the universe conspires to give us exactly what we believe we deserve. My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how I went from being completely hopeless about love to manifesting my soulmate using the law of attraction. Let me paint you a picture of who I was 3 years ago. I was living in a studio apartment in Lincoln Park, working as a software developer, spending most of my evenings alone with my laptop and takeout containers scattered around me. I'm mixed. My mom's Puerto Rican, my dad's black. And growing up, I always felt like I was caught between worlds, never quite fitting in anywhere completely. By 34, I had been through a series of relationships that left me feeling more and more convinced that I was fundamentally unlovable. My last relationship had ended 2 years prior when Sarah told me I was emotionally unavailable and too focused on work. The breakup hit me harder than I expected because deep down, I knew she was right. I remember sitting on my couch that October evening, scrolling through Instagram, watching everyone else's highlight reels, engagement photos, anniversary posts, cute couple selfies. The loneliness felt like a physical weight in my chest. I actually said out loud to my empty apartment, maybe I'm just meant to be alone. Maybe some people just don't get that kind of love. That night, I made a decision that seemed logical at the time, but was actually the most self-destructive thing I could do. I deleted all my dating apps and decided to give up on finding love entirely. I convinced myself I was being practical, protecting myself from more disappointment. But really, I was building walls around my heart and telling the universe, I don't believe I deserve love. The months that followed were some of the darkest of my life. I threw myself into work, staying at the office until 9 or 10 p.m. most nights. I told myself I was being productive, advancing my career. But the truth was I was avoiding going home to that empty apartment and facing the silence. I started having this recurring dream. I would be walking through a crowded place, sometimes a coffee shop, sometimes a bookstore, sometimes a park, and I would see this woman. I could never quite make out her face, but I could feel her energy, her warmth. In the dream, we would make eye contact across the room, and there would be this instant recognition, like we had known each other forever. But every time I tried to walk toward her, the crowd would thicken, and I would lose her. I would wake up with this profound sense of loss, like I had just lost something precious. The dreams became more frequent and more vivid. I started to dread sleeping because waking up meant facing the reality that she wasn't real, that it was just my mind creating what I desperately wanted but could never have. My sister Maya noticed the change in me during our weekly video calls. "Marcus, you look exhausted," she said one Sunday evening. "When's the last time you went out? When's the last time you did something just for fun?" I couldn't even remember. I had become a ghost of myself, going through the motions of living without actually being alive. The turning point came in March, during one of Chicago's particularly brutal late winter storms. I was stuck in my apartment for 3 days, and I had run out of distractions. I found myself browsing YouTube aimlessly when I stumbled across a video about the law of attraction. Normally, I would have scrolled past something like that. I was a programmer, a logical thinker, skeptical of anything that seemed too woo-woo. But something made me click on it. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the universe nudging me toward my transformation. The video was about a man who had manifested his dream job using visualization and belief. As I listened to him describe the process, something stirred in me that I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not because I suddenly believed in magic, but because what he was describing sounded like programming for the mind. As a developer, I understood that you get out what you put in. If you write bad code, you get bugs. If you write clean, intentional code, you get the results you want. What if the mind worked the same way? I spent the next 2 weeks diving deep into everything I could find about the law of attraction. I read about Napoleon Hill's work on thinking and growing rich, about Neville Goddard's teachings on imagination creating reality, about the power of assumption and feeling. But it was when I discovered Joe Dispenza's work on the science behind manifestation that everything clicked for me. Dispenza explained how our thoughts create neural pathways, how our emotions send signals to our cells, how we literally create our reality through our dominant mental and emotional states. This wasn't mysticism. This was neuroscience. This was quantum physics. This was something my logical mind could accept and work with. On a rainy Thursday evening in late March, I made a decision that would change my life forever. I was going to approach finding love like I approached solving complex programming problems, with intention, strategy, and unwavering belief in the outcome. I sat down at my kitchen table with a notebook and started writing. Not just any writing, I was going to define exactly what I wanted in a partner and in a relationship, with the same precision I used when writing code specifications. But here's what I discovered as I started writing. I couldn't describe what I wanted in someone else because I didn't know who I was or what I had to offer. I realized that all my previous relationships had failed not because I was unlovable, but because I had never learned to love myself. How could I expect someone else to love me when I was constantly criticizing myself when I believed I wasn't enough? That night, I made 2 commitments. First, I was going to become the man worthy of the love I desired. Second, I was going to trust that the universe would bring me exactly what I needed when I was ready to receive it. I started my transformation the next morning with a simple routine that would become sacred to me over the following months. Every day at 6 a.m., before checking my phone or thinking about work, I would sit in meditation for 20 minutes. Not traditional meditation, this was what Neville Goddard called the wish fulfilled. I would close my eyes and imagine in vivid detail what it felt like to be in love and to be loved. I didn't focus on what she looked like or specific details about her background. Instead, I focused on the feeling, the warmth of being understood, the joy of sharing life with someone who genuinely cared about my dreams and fears, the peace of knowing I had found my person. I would imagine conversations we might have over morning coffee, the sound of her laughter, the feeling of her hand in mine. I would picture us cooking together in my kitchen, traveling to new places, supporting each other through challenges. Most importantly, I would imagine how it felt to be completely myself with someone else. No masks, no pretending, just authentic connection. But the visualization was only part of it. I realized that if I was going to attract genuine love, I had to become genuinely lovable. Not in a performative way, but in a deep, authentic way. I started working out, not to impress anyone, but because I wanted to feel strong and healthy in my own body. I began reading books that had nothing to do with programming, philosophy, poetry, biographies of people who had overcome incredible challenges. I wanted to become more interesting to myself first. I also started practicing gratitude for the love that was already in my life. Every morning I would write down 3 things I was grateful for. My sister's unwavering support, my parents' sacrifices that had given me opportunities, the friendship of my college roommate Jake, who still checked on me regularly even though we lived in different cities now. After about 6 weeks of this daily practice, something remarkable started happening. I began to feel different from the inside out. The constant background noise of self-criticism and doubt started to quiet down. I found myself smiling at strangers on the street, not because I was trying to attract anyone, but because I genuinely felt more open and connected to the world around me. I started saying yes to invitations I would have previously declined. When my coworker invited me to a book club, I went. When my neighbor asked if I wanted to join his weekly basketball game at the local court, I said yes, even though I hadn't played in years. I wasn't doing these things to meet women. I was doing them because I was becoming someone who said yes to life. The dreams about the mysterious woman started to change too. Instead of losing her in the crowd, I would find myself having actual conversations with her. I still couldn't see her face clearly, but I could feel her personality, her kindness, her intelligence, her sense of humor that perfectly complemented mine. I would wake up from these dreams not with sadness but with excitement, like I had just spent time with a dear friend. By May, the synchronicities started becoming impossible to ignore. I would think about a specific book during my morning meditation, and someone would mention it later that day. I would wonder about trying a new restaurant, and a coworker would suggest going there for lunch. Small things, but they felt like the universe was responding to my new openness. The most significant synchronicity happened on a Saturday morning in early June. I was at my usual coffee shop, working on a side project, when I overheard two women at the next table talking about manifestation and the law of attraction. One of them was explaining to her friend how she had attracted her current job by visualizing it every day for 3 months. I normally would have minded my own business, but something compelled me to politely introduce myself and mention that I had been studying the same concepts. We ended up having an hour-long conversation about consciousness, quantum physics, and the power of belief. Her name was Jennifer, and while I didn't feel romantic attraction to her, she became a wonderful friend who understood this journey I was on. Through Jennifer, I learned about a monthly meetup group for people interested in personal development and conscious living. She invited me to the next gathering, which happened to be focused on manifesting meaningful relationships. The meetup was held in a cozy community center in Wicker Park. About 20 people sat in a circle, sharing their experiences with manifestation and supporting each other's journeys. I was nervous at first. I had never been in a group like this before. But everyone was so genuine and welcoming that I quickly felt at ease. The facilitator, an older man named David who had been studying these principles for 30 years, led us through an exercise that would prove to be pivotal for me. He asked us to write a letter to our future selves from the perspective of having already received what we were trying to manifest. I wrote a letter to myself 1 year in the future, describing in detail what my life looked like after finding love. But as I wrote, something beautiful happened. I found myself describing not just having a partner, but being a partner. I wrote about how patient and understanding I had become, how I had learned to communicate my needs clearly and listen deeply to hers, how I had developed the emotional maturity to handle conflict with grace and love. When we shared excerpts from our letters with the group, I found myself getting emotional as I read mine aloud. It wasn't just about finding someone, it was about becoming someone worthy of the love I desired to receive. David nodded as I finished reading and said something that has stayed with me ever since. The universe doesn't respond to what we want. It responds to who we are. Become the person who naturally attracts what you desire, and watch how quickly your reality shifts. That conversation with David sparked the next phase of my transformation. I realized that despite all my visualization and positive thinking, I was still carrying deep beliefs about my unworthiness that were sabotaging my efforts. I decided to work with a therapist who understood both traditional psychology and the principles of manifestation. Dr. Sarah Chen helped me uncover patterns I had been unconsciously repeating for years. I discovered that my father's emotional distance during my childhood had taught me to equate love with struggle and uncertainty. I had been unconsciously attracting relationships with women who were emotionally unavailable because that felt familiar, even though it made me miserable. We worked together to rewrite these deep programming patterns. I learned techniques for identifying when old beliefs were surfacing and replacing them with new, empowering thoughts. I practiced affirmations not as empty repetition, but as genuine declarations of my new reality. I am worthy of deep, authentic love. I attract relationships that are easy, joyful, and mutually supportive. I am emotionally available and attract someone who is equally open-hearted. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Chen helped me understand that I had been trying to fill an external void with external solutions. She asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. Marcus, can you honestly say you enjoy your own company? Do you love spending time with yourself? The answer was no. I realized that I had been so focused on finding someone to complete me that I had never learned to be complete on my own. How could I expect someone else to enjoy being with me if I didn't enjoy being with me? This realization led to the most important phase of my entire journey, learning to genuinely love and appreciate myself. I started doing things that brought me joy, regardless of whether they impressed anyone else. I took up photography, spending weekend mornings walking around Chicago with my camera, capturing moments of beauty in ordinary places. I started cooking elaborate meals for myself, setting the table nicely, playing music, treating myself with the same care I would show a beloved guest. I took myself on dates, to museums, concerts, movies I wanted to see. I learned that being alone didn't have to mean being lonely. I also started journaling every evening, not just about what happened during the day, but about what I was learning about myself, what I was grateful for, what I was excited about. Through this practice, I discovered aspects of my personality that I had been hiding for years. My love of poetry, my deep appreciation for architecture, my ability to find humor in almost any situation. As I fell in love with my own life, something magical started happening. I stopped feeling desperate for someone to rescue me from my loneliness because I was no longer lonely. I was genuinely happy, and that happiness wasn't dependent on external circumstances. I had learned what all the spiritual teachers talk about, that love is not something you find outside yourself, but something you are. By August, I felt like a completely different person than the man who had given up on love 10 months earlier. I was confident, happy, engaged with life, and surrounded by meaningful friendships. I looked good, felt good, and had a sense of purpose that extended far beyond finding a romantic partner. But then something interesting happened, a period that I now recognize as the universe's way of testing my faith and commitment to my new beliefs. For several weeks, nothing seemed to be moving forward romantically. I was meeting new people regularly, having interesting conversations, and even going on a few dates, but nothing was developing into the deep connection I was manifesting. I started to wonder if I was doing something wrong, if maybe this whole law of attraction thing was just elaborate self-deception. One particularly difficult evening in late August, after a promising second date that led nowhere, I found myself sitting on my couch feeling frustrated and disappointed. The old voices of doubt started creeping in. Maybe you're being unrealistic. Maybe you should just settle for someone who's good enough. Maybe soulmates are just a myth. But then I remembered something David had said at one of our meetups. The period right before your manifestation appears is often when your faith is tested most intensely. The universe wants to make sure you truly believe you deserve what you're asking for, not just when it's easy, but when it's challenging. I made a decision that night that would prove to be crucial. Instead of giving in to doubt, I doubled down on my practices. I increased my meditation time, intensified my gratitude practice, and most importantly, I reminded myself that my worth and happiness weren't dependent on having a partner. I was whole and complete exactly as I was, and a relationship would be a beautiful addition to my life, not a necessity for my happiness. September arrived with one of those perfect Chicago autumn days. Crisp air, golden sunlight filtering through the trees, the kind of day that makes you grateful to be alive. I had planned to spend the afternoon at the Art Institute, something I had been meaning to do for months but kept putting off. As I walked through the museum, I felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. I wasn't thinking about manifestation or relationships or any of my usual goals and desires. I was simply present, appreciating the beauty around me, feeling grateful for the life I had created for myself. Standing in front of a Monet painting, I had what I can only describe as a moment of complete surrender. Not giving up, but letting go of the need to control how and when my desires would manifest. I felt this profound trust that everything was unfolding exactly as it should, in perfect timing. I actually said a quiet prayer in that moment. Thank you for everything you've already given me. I trust that you know what's best for me and when. I'm open to receiving love in whatever form and timing serves my highest good. Less than 2 hours later, as I was leaving the museum, I decided to stop at a small cafe nearby that I had never been to before. I wasn't hungry or particularly in need of coffee. Something just drew me there. The cafe was busy with the Saturday afternoon crowd, and there was only one small table available, right next to the window. As I sat down with my coffee and pulled out a book, I heard a woman at the table next to me talking on the phone about a project she was working on, something about sustainable urban gardening. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but her passion for the subject was infectious. When she finished her call, I found myself politely asking about her project. Her face lit up as she explained how she was working with local schools to create rooftop gardens that would teach kids about nutrition and environmental responsibility. Her name was Elena. She was Latina, with kind brown eyes and an energy that was both calming and energizing at the same time. As we talked, I felt something I had never experienced before, a sense of immediate recognition, like I was talking to someone I had known my whole life. We ended up talking for 3 hours. About her work, about my photography, about books we loved, about places we wanted to travel. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by moments of comfortable silence where we just smiled at each other, both seeming to recognize that something special was happening. When she mentioned that she was new to Chicago, having moved from Austin just 2 months earlier, I offered to show her some of my favorite spots in the city. She said yes immediately, and we made plans to meet the following weekend. As I walked home that evening, I felt like I was floating. Not because I had met someone I was attracted to, I had experienced attraction before. This was different. This felt like coming home. That night I had the dream again. The one about the woman I could never quite see clearly. But this time, as I walked toward her through the crowd, she turned around, and I could see her face perfectly. It was Elena. I woke up with tears in my eyes, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. I realized that all those months of dreams hadn't been my mind creating fantasy. They had been preparation, allowing me to recognize her when she appeared. But the most beautiful part wasn't just that I had met her. It was how I had met her. I wasn't desperately searching or trying to make something happen. I was simply living my life, appreciating beauty, feeling grateful, completely content with myself. I had attracted her from a place of wholeness, not neediness. Our second meeting was even more magical than the first. I took her to Millennium Park, and we spent the entire day walking around the city, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about growing up in a small town in New Mexico, about her decision to become an environmental educator, about her dreams of creating sustainable communities. I found myself sharing things with her that I had never told anyone. My struggles with feeling like I belonged, my journey with manifestation, my deep belief that we create our own reality through our thoughts and beliefs. Instead of looking at me like I was crazy, she nodded with understanding. "I've been studying the same things," she said. "I actually moved to Chicago because I felt called here." I couldn't explain it logically, but something kept telling me that my next chapter was here. We looked at each other in amazement. She had been guided to the same city, around the same time I was becoming ready to receive love. The synchronicity was undeniable. Over the following weeks, our connection deepened in ways that felt both natural and miraculous. We discovered that we had been reading the same books, studying the same teachers, working on the same internal transformations. She had also been working with a therapist to heal old patterns and learn to love herself fully before entering a relationship. What struck me most about Elena wasn't just how compatible we were, but how she brought out the best version of myself. With her, I felt free to be completely authentic, vulnerable when I needed to be, strong when the situation called for it, playful, serious, silly, profound. She loved all aspects of me, including the parts I had been ashamed of for years. But more than that, being with her felt effortless in a way I had never experienced. There was no drama, no games, no wondering where I stood. Our communication was clear and honest. When we disagreed about something, we talked through it with respect and curiosity rather than defensiveness and attack. I remember one evening in October, about 6 weeks after we met, we were cooking dinner together in my kitchen. She was telling me about a challenging conversation she'd had with her mother, and I was really listening, not trying to fix anything, just being present with her experience. At one point, she stopped talking and just looked at me with this expression of wonder. "What is it?" I asked. "I feel so safe with you," she said. "I've never felt this safe with anyone before, like I can tell you anything and you won't judge me or try to change me." I felt tears welling up in my eyes because I felt exactly the same way. This was what I had been manifesting all along, not just romantic love, but a relationship where both people could be completely themselves and be loved for who they truly were. By November, we both knew we were in love, though we had been feeling it for weeks before we said the words. When Elena finally said, "I love you" on a snowy evening as we walked along Lake Michigan, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. But here's what was truly remarkable. Our love didn't feel desperate or needy or like we were trying to complete each other. It felt like two whole people choosing to share their wholeness. We enhanced each other's lives rather than trying to fix each other's problems. Elena supported my photography passion, often joining me on early morning shoots around the city. I supported her environmental work, helping her create websites and social media presence for her projects. We became genuine partners in every sense of the word. We also continued our individual spiritual practices while creating shared ones. We would meditate together in the mornings, express gratitude for each other and our relationship, and regularly discuss how we could use our connection to serve something greater than ourselves. By the following spring, I knew I wanted to spend my life with Elena. But instead of rushing into an engagement out of fear of losing her, I took time to really envision our future together. I wanted to propose not from a place of insecurity or societal expectation, but from a deep knowing that we were meant to build a life together. I proposed on the anniversary of the day we met, back at the Art Institute, in front of the same Monet painting where I had surrendered control and trusted the universe. I had designed the ring myself, incorporating elements that represented both of our journeys. A sustainable diamond to honor her environmental values, set in recycled gold, with an inscription inside that read, "Manifested with love." When I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me, she started crying before I even finished the question. "Yes," she said, "I've been dreaming of this moment since I was a little girl. But I never imagined it would feel this right, this perfect." We got married the following October, exactly 2 years after our first conversation in that little cafe. The wedding was small and intimate, held in a beautiful garden that Elena had helped design as part of her sustainable landscaping work. But the most beautiful part of the wedding wasn't the ceremony itself. It was the look in Elena's eyes as we said our vows. I could see in her face the same recognition I felt in my heart, that we had found what we had both been searching for our entire lives. In my vows, I thanked her not just for loving me, but for inspiring me to become the man I was meant to be. "You didn't complete me," I said, "because I learned to be complete on my own. But you made me better, braver, more loving, more open to all the beauty life has to offer." Today, as I'm recording this story, Elena and I have been married for 8 months and together for almost 3 years. We're currently house hunting, looking for a place with enough space for both of our dreams. A home office where I can edit photos and she can plan her environmental projects, a garden where we can grow our own food, and maybe, someday soon, space for the family we're both excited to create. But more than the external life we've built, it's the internal transformation that continues to amaze me. I wake up every morning grateful not just for Elena, but for the journey that led me to her. I'm grateful for all the heartbreak that taught me what I didn't want, for all the lonely nights that motivated me to learn to love myself, for all the doubt that forced me to develop unshakable faith. Elena often tells me that meeting me restored her faith in love, but the truth is, meeting her restored my faith in the universe itself. She proved to me that when we align our thoughts, emotions, and actions with what we truly desire, and when we become the person capable of receiving those desires, the universe conspires to make the impossible possible. Looking back on this journey, I can see clearly the principles that made this manifestation successful, and I want to share them with you, because I believe they can work for anyone who's willing to do the inner work. First, you cannot manifest from a place of lack and desperation. I tried for years to find love while believing I was unlovable, and all I attracted were relationships that confirmed that belief. It wasn't until I learned to love myself, to be genuinely happy on my own, that I became a magnet for healthy love. Second, the universe responds to who you are, not what you want. I spent months becoming the kind of man who deserved the love I desired. Emotionally mature, self-aware, grateful, open-hearted. When I changed internally, my external reality shifted to match. Third, you have to be willing to let go of control over how and when your desires manifest. The moment I stopped trying to force outcomes and started trusting divine timing, everything fell into place more beautifully than I could have planned. Fourth, manifestation requires both inner work and inspired action. I didn't just visualize and wait for love to knock on my door. I actively became more social, joined communities, said yes to opportunities, and put myself in situations where I could meet like-minded people. Finally, and this is crucial, you have to truly believe you deserve what you're asking for. Not just intellectually, but in your heart, in your cells, in your bones. I had to heal deep wounds about worthiness before I could attract someone who would treat me as worthy of love. The most beautiful part of this story isn't even about finding Elena, though she is the love of my life. It's about who I became in the process of preparing for her. The confidence, self-love, and faith I developed through this journey have transformed every area of my life. My career has flourished because I now approach challenges with the same faith and persistence I applied to manifesting love. My relationships with family and friends have deepened because I learned to be vulnerable and authentic. My health has improved because I learned to treat my body as a temple worthy of care and respect. Most importantly, I now live with an unshakable knowing that we truly are creators of our own reality. When challenges arise, and they do because that's part of life, I don't see myself as a victim of circumstances. I ask myself, what is this situation teaching me? How can I grow from this? What do I need to shift in my thinking or being to create a different outcome? Elena and I have started teaching workshops together, sharing what we've learned about conscious relationships and manifestation. We've seen dozens of people transform their love lives using these same principles. It never gets old, witnessing someone discover their own power to create the life they truly desire. If you're listening to this story and you're still searching for love, I want you to know that your person exists. They're out there, probably doing their own inner work, probably becoming the person worthy of someone like you. But while you're waiting for them to appear, don't waste time in longing and desperation. Use this time to fall in love with yourself. Use this time to become the most authentic, confident, loving version of yourself possible. Use this time to heal old wounds, develop new interests, build meaningful friendships, and create a life so beautiful that a partner will be an amazing addition, not a desperate necessity. Trust that the universe has perfect timing. Elena appeared in my life exactly when I was ready to recognize her and receive her. Not a moment before, when I still had healing to do, and not a moment later, when I might have given up on love entirely. Practice gratitude for the love that's already in your life while you wait for romantic love to arrive. Be grateful for friends who support you, family members who care about you, the love you have for your work, your hobbies, your dreams. Love is everywhere when you train your eyes to see it. And please don't settle for less than what your heart truly desires just because you're tired of waiting. I could have settled for any number of relationships that were good enough, but holding out for what I truly wanted led me to something extraordinary. You deserve extraordinary love too. As I finish telling this story, Elena is in the kitchen making us dinner, humming along to music playing from her phone. In a few minutes, I'll join her, and we'll cook together, talk about our days, plan our weekend, maybe dream about the future we're building together. It's such an ordinary moment, and yet it's everything I ever wanted. This is what I was really manifesting all those months, not grand romantic gestures or fairy tale moments, but the deep satisfaction of sharing everyday life with someone who truly sees and appreciates who I am. Sometimes I think about that broken man who sat on his couch 3 years ago, convinced he was destined to be alone forever. I wish I could go back and tell him that his greatest love story was just beginning, that all his pain was leading him toward everything he ever wanted. But maybe he wouldn't have believed me then. Maybe he needed to walk through that darkness to appreciate the light. Maybe the journey was just as important as the destination. What I know for certain is this: the universe is always listening, always responding, always conspiring to give us exactly what we believe we deserve. My life with Elena is proof that fairy tales can be real when we believe in them deeply enough to become the kind of people who deserve to live them. The law of attraction isn't magic. It's becoming so clear about what you want, and so aligned with who you need to be to receive it, that the universe has no choice but to deliver. It's about faith, persistence, self-love, and unwavering belief in the goodness of life. And if it worked for a skeptical programmer from Chicago who had given up on love, it can work for you too. If this story resonated with you, if you felt something shift inside you as you listened, I want you to do something right now. I want you to close your eyes for just a moment and feel what it would be like to be completely, unconditionally loved for exactly who you are right now. Don't think about what you need to change or fix about yourself first. Just imagine someone looking into your eyes with complete acceptance and adoration, seeing all your flaws and loving you anyway, celebrating your quirks and dreams and fears as part of what makes you beautiful. Feel that love filling your chest, warming your entire body, reminding you that you are worthy of extraordinary love simply because you exist. If you can feel that, even for a moment, then you're ready to begin your own manifestation journey. That feeling you just experienced? That's your North Star. That's what you're calling in. Now, in the comments below, I want you to make a declaration to the universe. Write, "I am ready for love." Just those 5 words. Don't explain or qualify or list your fears. Just claim your readiness. And if you believe that everything happens for a reason, that there are no coincidences, that you were meant to hear this story today, write, "I trust divine timing." Let the universe know you're ready. Let love know you're no longer hiding. Let your future partner know you're doing the work to become worthy of them. And please, if this video gave you hope, if it reminded you that miracles are possible, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that love is always possible when we align with our true power to create our reality. Your love story is waiting to be written. The question is, are you ready to become the author? Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing in the power of love, the magic of manifestation, and the infinite possibility that exists within each of us to create the life of our dreams. Remember, the universe is always saying yes. The only question is what you're asking for with your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, and your actions. Ask for love, become love, trust love, and watch as your reality transforms to match the beauty of your highest dreams. I believe in you, Elena believes in you, and somewhere out there, your person is believing in you too, even if they don't know your name yet. The love you seek is seeking you. Until next time, keep manifesting miracles.